Hello, fellow TWU students. I'm Erica Shellac, and I will be presenting Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. Howard Gardner is a psychologist and a professor at Harvard's Graduate School of Education. He first published his book, Frames of Mind, in 1983, where he presented the major tenets of his theory as well as defined the first 7 intelligences. He published another book, Intelligence Reframed, in 1999, where he added 2 additional intelligences for a total of 9. So when most people think about intelligence and how to measure it, they turn to the intelligence quotient, or the IQ test. Or maybe they think about the SAT, the ACT, the GRE, or any other standardized test that measures someone's intelligence. However, what about Kim Peek, the inspiration for Dustin Hoffman's Rain Man character? Due to severe brain damage, he scores below average on IQ tests, but has read 12,000 books and remembers everything about them. He can read 2 pages at a time in about 3 seconds. His left eye reads the left page and his right eye reads the right. There's also Daniel Tammet, who is a highly functioning autistic young man who has amazing mathematical abilities and speaks 11 languages, one of which he learned in a week when challenged by documentary makers. Kim and Daniel are known as savants, people with exceptional and somewhat superhuman mental abilities that have some form of cognitive or social disability. But what about people who aren't savants, people like Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix? Neither of these men are known for their SAT scores, but are instead widely recognized as 2 of the greatest guitarists of our time and their intelligence of music. There are also people like Michael Jordan, Bo Jackson, and Wayne Gretzky. These 3 are awesome athletes who made huge contributions to their respective sports and excelled in other sports as well. No one could correctly argue against their athleticism and intelligence with how they use their bodies. No one takes their IQ score into consideration either. So what does all this have to do with Gardner and his theory of multiple intelligences? Savants like Kim Peek and other exceptional individuals who you could say are very intelligent in their respective fields all play into his theory and what he thinks about intelligence himself. Gardner defined 9 different intelligences. They are linguistic intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, spatial intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, naturalist intelligence, and existential intelligence. I'll cover these more in detail later. Gardner has listed 3 major conclusions of the multiple intelligences theory. They are: intelligence is a property of all human beings, meaning all of us possess all of the multiple intelligences. It is also a dimension on which human beings differ. This means that no 2 people, not even identical twins, possess the exact same profile of intelligences. It is also a way in which one carries out a task in virtue of one's goals. This means that just because someone has a strong intelligence doesn't mean they will act intelligently or use this intelligence to its full potential. A major tenet of the theory is that all people possess all 9 intelligences and are capable of excelling at all of them. However, some people may be more proficient in some intelligences and modestly are underdeveloped in others. Students with learning disabilities often have deficits in the logical, mathematical, and the linguistic intelligences, but might be strong in others. However, the unfortunate reality is that traditional schooling places emphasis on the logical and linguistic intelligences, which puts these students at a disadvantage. Before delving deeper into the different intelligences that make up this theory, let's quickly go over the criteria that Gardner used to define each of his intelligences. They are potential isolation by brain damage, the existence of idiot savants, prodigies, or other exceptional individuals, an identifiable core operation or set of operations, a distinctive developmental history, along with a definable set of expert in-state performances, an evolutionary history and evolutionary plausibility, support from experimental psychological tasks, support from psychometric findings, and susceptibility to encoding in a symbol system. In addition to satisfying these criteria, in order to be an intelligence, Gardner also required that it enabled the individual to resolve genuine problems or difficulties, and it entailed the potential for finding or creating problems. And now I'll talk more about the 9 intelligences. The linguistic intelligence consists of verbal skills, sensitivity to spoken and written language and the rhythm, sounds, and meaning of words, the ability to learn languages, and the ability to express oneself and remember information. According to Gardner, defining linguistic intelligence was congruent with the stance of traditional psychology and passes empirical tests due to the language being tied to Broca's area in the brain. Accomplished writers, poets, lawyers, journalists, and speakers are likely to have high linguistic intelligence. The logical mathematical intelligence deals with analyzing problems, detecting patterns, using scientific reasoning and deduction, and carrying out mathematical operations. Gardner states this intelligence is the one that has been studied the most thoroughly by psychologists and is what most people think of when they consider raw intelligence. Ironically, the mechanism that allows for people to logically and/or mathematically problem solve is not completely understood. There is evidence to support that the linguistic areas of the brain are more important for logical deduction, and the visuospatial areas of the brain are more important for numeric calculation. Researchers, scientists, engineers, and statisticians are likely to have high logical mathematical intelligence. The musical intelligence consists of the ability to appreciate and produce musical patterns, as well as recognizing, appreciating, and composing musical pitches, tones, and rhythms. Parts of the brain responsible for the perception and production of music are mostly located in the right hemisphere, and there is evidence that amusia, the selective loss of musical ability, is something that occurs when damage is sustained to this area. Musical performers, singers, acoustic engineers, and composers are all examples of individuals with high musical intelligence. The bodily kinesthetic intelligence consists of the ability to control one's body movements, the potential of using one's whole body or parts of the body to solve problems, and the ability to use mental capacity to coordinate movement. Body movement is controlled by the motor cortex, and the ability to control movement can be diminished or impaired with brain damage. Body movement also goes through defined sequences in childhood development. Gardner also noted that the ability to use the body to express emotion like dancers do, to play a game or a sport like athletes do, or to create a new product through building and inventing is evidence of the cognitive skill behind body movement. Athletes, dancers, actors, surgeons, and nurses are likely to have high bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Spatial intelligence is about the ability to think in images and pictures, to understand the relationships and meanings between space and effect, and to visualize accurately and abstractly. Problem solving in this intelligence occurs with navigation, using a map, visualizing an object from different angles, playing chess, and so on. Spatial processing occurs in the posterior region of the right cerebral cortex, and damage to this area will bring about deficits in spatial intelligence. Artists, city planners, architects, and sculptors are examples of individuals who have high levels of spatial intelligence. Interpersonal intelligence involves the capacity to understand the moods, intentions, and desires of other people, as well as be able to respond appropriately. It also involves the interpretation of behavior and communications and the ability to relate to others. Research has shown that the frontal lobe plays a dominant part in interpersonal intelligence. Damage to the frontal lobe, like in Pick's disease, causes profound personality changes and a loss of social graces. Individuals such as teachers, nurses, therapists, salespeople, and political or religious leaders have high levels of interpersonal intelligence. Interpersonal intelligence involves the capacity to be self-aware, to understand oneself, to be in tune to your own fears, motivations, feelings, beliefs, and so on. The frontal lobe of the brain plays a large role in this intelligence as well. Gardner feels that this intelligence allows us to have a working model of ourselves and be able to use that to regulate our lives. He also states that intrapersonal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence are closely linked because they both have problem-solving capabilities that are important for the individual as well as the species. Gardner recently added two new intelligences. In 1999, he added naturalistic intelligence. This intelligence deals with the ability to categorize animals, plants, and other objects in nature. Gardner states that this intelligence has the core capacity to recognize instances as members of a species and an evolutionary history of survival utilizing it. There is also evidence of people who can recognize and name inanimate objects but are unable to name or recognize living things and vice versa. Gardner himself will refer to his intelligences as 8.5 intelligence as opposed to 9 because of his reluctance to include existential intelligence due to ongoing research. Still, it is the ninth and final intelligence I will talk about and deals with the sensitivity to and capability of tackling deep questions about human existence, such as why do we live, why do we die, where do we come from, and so on. This intelligence can be observed in people such as philosophers and religious leaders. Gardner's theory is a definite step away from the traditional view of intelligence, and certainly the methods of teaching and learning that are used in traditional school systems. His view of intelligence and his theory of multiple intelligences also challenges Piaget's work. Here are a few differences between the traditional view of intelligence and intelligence as viewed from Gardner's theory. The traditional view of intelligence states that people are born with a fixed amount of intelligence. According to MI theory, humans have all of the intelligences, but each individual has a unique combination or profile. The traditional view states that intelligence level does not change over a lifetime, but MI theory states that we can all improve each of the intelligences. However, some will improve more readily or easily in some intelligences than others will. The traditional view states that intelligence consists of an ability in logic and language. MI theory says that there are many intelligences that reflect different ways of interacting with the world. So how can the theory of multiple intelligences impact education? Gardner's work has been called a philosophy of education and an attitude towards learning, as opposed to a program for strategies and techniques for teaching and learning. However, Gardner has defined implications for education in his work. The first implication is individual-centered education. Traditionally, schools teach every kid the same material in the same way, and in turn, all students are assessed the same as well. Most of the time, traditional education rewards students who have strong linguistic and logical mathematical intelligences, but makes school difficult for students who have different intelligence profiles. Individual-centered education takes the differences between individuals seriously. Educators learn as much as they can about the strengths of each student and then create the best education for that child. Gardner has also suggested 3 different roles for educators in this type of educational system. The first role is an assessment specialist. When it is noticed a child is displaying learning difficulties, the assessment specialist will acquire as much information as possible about the child and present it to teachers, parents, and the child so that education adjustments can be made. The second role Gardner has devised is the student curriculum broker. The person in this role would help students choose the required courses that are being taught in the best presentation for the child's intelligence profile and recommend electives best suited for them. The third role is that of the school community broker, who has a similar job to that of the student curriculum broker, but does so outside of the school walls. This person would recommend and introduce the student to opportunities, vocational and otherwise, in the community that fit into the child's intelligence profile. Another implication for education is multiple representations of key concepts. One educational goal that Gardner is passionate about and thinks his theory can help with is for students to show genuine understanding in a number of key disciplines. He wants students to be able to think of and critique a scientific experiment, analyze a current event in terms of historical precedents, and look at a work of art and be able to appreciate its power and modes of operation. Traditional schooling teaches the same content in the same way. What Gardner's theory suggests is that by presenting material in a variety of different ways, understanding will be achieved by a greater number of students. Some students may better understand all disciplines through a linguistic standpoint, while others may learn some subjects through one intelligence and other subjects through a different intelligence better. I feel that these implications are the most real-world accessible, but Gardner has done work or worked with groups researching every age group. Additionally, other researchers have begun working with MI theory and have published work on its implications and applications. What it boils down to is that there is a lot of information out there, and some of it has applications in healthcare education. A group of researchers utilized a plan called the Multiple Intelligence Teaching Approach, or MITA. MITA is a 5-phase approach that combines Gardner's theory with a constructivist viewpoint. Phase 4 of MITA offers learning and assessment tasks using the students' multiple intelligences to present solutions. The use of MI theory here connects students' interests and strengths to curriculum requirements. This example of Phase 4 of MITA uses mental health nursing as a foundation. To have students engage their logical mathematical intelligence, they could graph rates of client independence after certain nursing interventions. Graphing information, looking at statistics, and discussing cause and effect are all options for assessment here. To engage students' interpersonal intelligence, they could teach peers through case studies, vignettes, or personal experiences with mental health patients. Sharing stories, interviews, surveys, and team teaching are all options for assessment. To engage students' spatial intelligence, they could create posters over different mental health conditions. Drawing, painting, and creating pictorial illustrations of disease systems are all ways of assessing students in this phase. Here are more examples of MI theory used for nursing education, specifically in a lecture setting. Appealing to the linguistic intelligence can be done through note writing, having students engage in storytelling, having them do some journal writing, lecturing off of PowerPoints with fill in the blanks, and having students complete a 1-minute exam activity, which means they will have 1 minute to write down everything they know about a certain subject. Educators can pick up on students with strong linguistic intelligence if the student mentions something about learning best when the instructor teaches through straight lecture. Learning strategies for the logical mathematical intelligence include comparing and contrasting disease and symptoms, participating in brain teasers and number games, and performing drug calculations. Strong logical mathematical students usually mention something about enjoying math or finding it easy. Learning strategies to incorporate spatial intelligence into nursing education are concept maps, using presentations with color and graphics, presenting information using charts or having students create charts, and utilizing film and TV clips that are relevant to the topic being taught. Educators can identify students with strong spatial intelligence if they hear them say something about having to see something in their head to remember it. Appealing to the bodily kinesthetic intelligence can be accomplished through role-playing scenarios related to the topic being taught and performing return demonstrations, such as showing competency performing a clinical skill. Students with strong bodily kinesthetic intelligence will mention having to perform a procedure in order to learn it. Appealing to the musical intelligence can be accomplished by playing classical music softly in the background during tests or other individual in-class assignments. Students with a strong musical intelligence usually say something about listening to music while they study. The student with a strong interpersonal intelligence will usually enjoy working in groups to learn. Incorporating small group activities, peer teaching, and collaboration will appeal to this intelligence. A student with a strong intrapersonal intelligence will usually enjoy working alone in order to learn something. Learning strategies such as having students individually complete, read, and summarize activities, as well as allowing for students to assess themselves, their goals, their strengths, and their weaknesses will appeal to this intelligence. Finally, utilizing outdoor class settings and providing pharmacology assignments that involve studying the plants of origin of certain medications will appeal to the naturalist intelligence. This brings my presentation over Howard Gardner and his multiple intelligences theory to an end. You can find my references below as well as in a Word document that I uploaded to Blackboard. I hope everyone enjoyed it and I look forward to discussing this theory further with you this week. Thank you.